So last previous three classes or four classes, we speak about the Fermi level. Okay, so we are finding the position of the Fermi level, and we are formulating the formula for different intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor. So what is mean by a Fermi level? Okay, so you have a lot of definitions here. So let me have to have a clear idea about the Fermi level. So you can have the slide. What is Fermi level? Okay, so you can say in one word answer that yeah, it is the measure of energy of least tightly held electrons, or you can say so which indicates the probability of occupancy of a given energy level by an electron. Okay, yesterday you have seen the position and formula for that one. So we can say probability of occupancy of a given energy level by an electron is nothing but Fermi level. Okay, so here you have a formula here, f of e. You have done so many derivations for calculating the density of holes, or whatever. We use f of e, the most in Fermi distribution function. Okay, so what it means gives is here, actually we call it as Fermi Dirac distribution, right? But most we use that charge particle will have some energy. Okay, so that given by the Fermi Dirac distribution function. So we can say f of e is equal to 1 by 1 plus e to the power of e minus ef by kt. This is the actual distribution function we have. Okay, so based on different, we can have this is ec minus ef, or ev minus ef. So according to our requirement, based on the different estimation of carrier concentration, we have just changed this one. That is EC minus EF, EV minus EF. Okay, according to our requirement, right? So here we can say that EF is nothing but already we have done, that is Fermi energy, where K or K suffix B we can write. That is Boltzmann constant, right? And we have a KT here, okay, which is approximately 0.026 electron volts at room temperature. Okay, now, so what happens if E is equal to EF, right? Then f of E is equal to zero point 0.5. You got some decimal here. So what is the decimal means is that, so it is defined as the energy point where the probability of occupying the electron is exactly 50%. That means 50% of electrons are occupied in particular energy level. If f of E is equal to zero point 0.7, we can say the energy point is occupancy by electrons of 70%, like that. Okay, so this decimal means gives the probability of finding the electron in particular energy level. So that is about the Fermi level here, right? Now next, so coming to the intrinsic semiconductor, so the Fermi level is defined as you can have, that is EF is equal to EC plus EV plus. You can have the same expressions what you have here. So regarding this parameters, you have a conduction band, bottom edge, that is lower level of the conduction band, and this is the top level of the valence band you can have, which is measured in electron volts. Okay, so this all what just to recollect about the Fermi level. So where we use this Fermi level, just to recollect how here. So here the second term contributes, that means you are finding the Fermi level, isn't it? So it is very little, and its intrinsic semiconductor is given. That means at t is equal to 0. If you put t is equal to 0 here, so you can find the Fermi level in the intrinsic semiconductor. So we can say the middle of the band gap. So similarly in extrinsic semiconductor, that is n-type semiconductor. So this is the expression we have here. Okay, and you can find the position of the Fermi level that is higher than the intrinsic level, that is and close to the conduction band. We can say it is midway between the donor level and the bottom level of the conduction band, isn't it? Now coming to the p-type semiconductor, so you have the expression for this one. So same way we can have the Fermi level that is lower than the intrinsic Fermi level and close to the valence band. That is top level of the valence band and between the what is that? Yeah, Fermi level of that one, right? So this to have the Fermi level idea. And in the next slide, you have a that is dependence of Fermi level on temperature and impurity, that is carrier concentration, isn't it? So how we define depends upon that is effect of doping and temperature on Fermi level, isn't it? So this already you have studied, but putting two graphs at one place, so you can have this one, right? So here, effect of doping levels on Fermi level, that means impurities. Okay, so at constant T, as a doping concentration increases, the second term of respective Fermi levels becomes small, and hence we can write EF will be continued towards the EC and EF will be continued towards the EV. That is, this is called N-type semiconductor and this is called P-type semiconductor, right? So if you see here, this is the Fermi level in intrinsic level, right? You can see the dotted one. Okay, so where you can see the graph here, isn't it? So it is having, see, EF will be continued towards EC like this. It will continue to the EC, right? Okay, this is called N-type semiconductor. Whereas coming to the P-type semiconductor, you can see here will continue towards EC, or sorry, EV, that is towards the valence band, that is top level of that one. So we can say this is the Fermi level of N-type and this is the Fermi level of P-type. Okay, and EFI is called intrinsic of Fermi level. This is I presence superscript. You can see the superscript of I here. Okay, whereas En is the nothing but N type and this is the P type. Okay, so you can see here the upward you can have the energy levels, that is donor dopants concentration, that is Nd atoms per centimeter cube. Here similarly you can see have acceptor donor dopant concentrations, right? So why? Because we are calling here acceptor dopant concentration is here you can see uh, the graph is but coming towards down to the upper top level of the valence band, that is called acceptor energy level. Already we have studied in p type. Similarly you can say this is the donor dopant concentration where you have donor energy level here, right? So here, effect of doping on Fermi level, you can have this, isn't it? So coming to here, just for understanding, already we have this is here, shifts towards the conduction band, this one, right? So yesterday we have learned about this is the graph starts from here and goes like this here, isn't it? So in similarly, here also you can have in the p-type semiconductor, the line goes here and like this, isn't it? So this depends upon the doping, that is impurity atoms in both N-type and P-type semiconductors, right? Okay. Now next, effect of temperature on Fermi level. So you already have that one, how the temperature changes are different here. So here, as in previous class, the temperature is constant. Please keep it in mind. Here, T is constant here, but you're increasing the concentration, doping concentrations in both p-type and n-type semiconductors. Okay, so here the temperature here is increases, depends upon increases. So this is come under doping becomes less important than the thermal generation of carriers. Okay, so to do this, Fermi level of extrinsic semiconductor, that is Fermi level of n-type and p-type, tends to intrinsic Fermi level. So you can see the figure here, right? Now you can understand here is, so this is the intrinsic Fermi level here in both the cases, right? You can have here. So this is the top level of the valence band. This is the bottom level of the conduction band. And this is the Fermi level where you have N-type semiconductor here. And this is a P-type semiconductor. So as the temperature increases, you can see the Fermi level of both N-type and P-type varies here. So here you can see the temperature of energy versus here. Okay, this is only for at T is equal to 0 what you have. So if T increases, this is the picture you can see here. So what happens here for n-type semiconductor, do E by do T is less than 0. That is, as T is increase, okay, the Fermi level of n-type gradually decreases. You can see here, gradually decreases. At certain T, it reaches the, that means this is a point where you call. At certain temperature, it reaches the intrinsic Fermi level. That means it go on decreasing. As T is increasing, see here, as the temperature is increasing, the Fermi level of n-type semiconductor decreases up to certain point. At what point it is called intrinsic Fermi level, isn't it? Similarly, for p-type semiconductor, that means the Fermi level of p-type semiconductor is greater than 0. That means as T is increases, that is Fermi level of p-type semiconductor also increases. At certain point T, it reaches Fermi level. So this is some mistake is there. It is Fp, not N. This is right. So you can see here,
Sir, friends are waiting, sir.
waiting. Right. So here, Fermi level of p-type gradually increases up to certain point. Same, the point reaches similar point. That is Fermi level of n-type and Fermi level of p-type reaches at a limit point that is called intrinsic Fermi level. Okay. So the how the temperature depends upon the Fermi level depends upon the temperature, isn't it? So you keep it in mind here, the temperature gradually. So in all the cases, we, that is in extrinsic semiconductor, so far we have focused only for impurities. But here, how temperature varies, how the Fermi level varies with the temperature we have seen here, isn't it? Right? So this is about the Fermi level in both the cases, right? Now coming to here, so what is the moral of the story here? What is the moral of the story? What is the basic difference between the intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor? What you have here? So both you can have the similar points. What you have, just as 5 points you can see here. So here we can say these are basic difference, that is a pure form that is called intrinsic, and it is a doping with impurities, different trivalent and pentavalent atoms. Okay, so uh, here the change carriers are sorry, not charge carriers are produced only due to thermal excitation, isn't it? So here the charge carriers are produced due to impurities, okay, and may also to be produced due to thermal. Both you can have. So that is the most advantage between the intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor. So it depends upon only temperature, but it depends upon impurity as well as temperature. But most of the cases we use at particular temperature, we add dopants. Dopants, adding the doping is very easy rather than increasing the temperature. Why? Because if go on increasing the temperature, the material may have different properties. That means you can have a damage in that, but you can't use in all the applications. So that is the most advantage we use in extrinsic semiconductor is it depend upon two parameters, that is doping and temperature, isn't it? Somewhat we use the temperature in some cases, but in all the cases we don't use the temperature. Why? Because you can't material cannot sustain at higher temperatures. So in that case, we add dopants is very easy, isn't it? Okay. And coming to here, the conductivity is very low. So that's why we can't use in any electronic gadgets, that is intrinsic semiconductors, right? So because they have high electrical conductivity, we can more applications in extrinsic semiconductor, whether it is n-type or p-type semiconductor. Here we have low operating temperature, isn't it? For small high wave, small temperature, you have a greater conduction current. But coming to here, that what I have said now, just high operating temperatures. This means if you add some dopants, their thermal properties changes, isn't it? Okay. if you have any impurities, the density may increase and you require more temperature to that one, right? So here at 0 Kelvin, Fermi level exactly lies. That means you are telling the position of the Fermi level. But here it is lies closer to the n-type, and p-type will be different here. Okay. Now you can see the examples what you have an intrinsic semiconductor, that is already we have studied, that is elemental semiconductor, that is silicon and germanium mostly we use. Then coming to the extrinsic semiconductor, we have a compound, right? Silicon and germanium doped with aluminum or other phosphorus, arsenic atoms. So for depend upon p-type and n-type semiconductors, right? Yeah, most of the people, I don't know why they are going back and coming again and asking the permission to admit. Hmm? Right. So this is the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor. Now let me have the outline of the n-type and p-type semiconductor. So we can n-type semiconductor is obtained by doping intrinsic semiconductor with pentavalent, and we have same in trivalent. Here majority carriers are electrons and minority are holes. Here majority are holes and minority are electrons. Okay. So here donor energy levels are very close to Cb, that is conduction band, and you can see the acceptor layer which is close to the valence band. So when the temperature is increased, these semiconductors can easily donate an electron from donor energy level to conduction band. Already we have studied. So why I'm telling all this, they may ask in the exams so that you have some idea how to write. What is the points to write if they ask in the examination, that is mention some difference between the n-type and p-type means. So you can't suddenly get idea. So what points you have to write is, so these are the points you can have. Please note it down. Okay. So previously you also you have, if they ask a 2 marks question, you can write all this. This is enough. Okay. So if you want the photo shot, please take the photo shot of this one, right? So that means you can't get sudden idea when you go for the exam. They may ask the question for 2 marks, or they may ask in part A. In part A, you have a 2 marks question. They may ask like this type of questions. Okay. And you're thinking about, but it is very easy. When you put it on the paper, it is so difficult, right? So take this photo shot, keep it here, right? And come into here, n-type and p-type. This also you take one photo shot, please, so that you get some idea. You get score 2 marks easily, isn't it? So these points, if you write in that exam when in a 2 marks questions, it is very easy for that. Okay. So here when the temperature is increased, so the semiconductors can easily accept an electron from valence band to donor energy level. Okay. So this is the difference between n-type and p-type semiconductors, right? Now let us have the uh, carrier transport. So what is carrier transport? That means we have two types here. Basically in semiconductors, we observe two kinds of currents. So one is drift current, one is diffusion current. Okay. So what is meant by drift current and what is meant by diffusion current? Let us know clearly. And what are the derivations? How can you derive the derivations regarding the diffusion current and drift current? So first, let us have the drift current. What do you mean by drift current? So here the definition gives here, the flow of electric current due to motion of charge carriers under the influence of external electric field, isn't it? So you have a charge carriers, isn't it? To accelerate such type of charge carriers, we require some external electric current. Okay, that is called drifting. Drifting the charge carriers. That is called, due to drifting of these charge carriers, we call the current produced is nothing but drift current. So if you have intrinsic semiconductor, number of electrons, number of holes, we have a two type of charge carriers, electrons and holes. So every semiconductor have charge carriers, isn't it? To drift that charge carriers from one terminal to other, so we have some external field should be applied. That current produced by external field is called drift current, right? Okay, so this most important, you can note it all this. Then, so let us have the derivation for the drift current. How can you find the drift current in semiconductors? So let me have consider a simple here. So here, when an electric field E is applied across the semiconductor material, then charge carrier attain a drift velocity Vd. So let us assume that the drift velocity is Vd, isn't it? D represents drift, okay, right? So for drift velocity, V is equal to mu into E. E is nothing but external electric field what you have applied for the semiconductor. So make it equation 1. So you find the drift velocity. So here the relation between current density J and the drift velocity VE, you can have the current density, right? So that is called J is equal to N into Q, that is charge, into VD, where N is nothing but carrier concentration. Already you have calculated the carrier concentration in intrinsic and extrinsic semiconductor, right? And where Q is nothing but charge of the electron or hole, isn't it? So what you understand from equation 1 and equation 2, okay, this is from current density and this is from drift velocity. So how can you find the your drift is nothing but N into Q into mu into E, isn't it? Okay, right? So where mu is nothing but mobility of charge carrier. So what is the mobility of charge carrier? I'll come later with the definition of that one, right? So here the above equation shows the general expression for drift current density. Okay, so we are speaking, this is called just uh, current density. So we are speaking about drift, we call it as drift current density. So you got the expression for that one. Now here the drift current density due to electrons, we can write just our that one. So what you can you write using the same equation, JE drift is equal to N into E into mu into E, where N is nothing but electrons carrier concentration and mu is nothing but mobility of electrons. Here mu is different from mu E. So this is the overall mobility of charge carrier. This is only for mobility of electrons. That's why we call it as mu suffix E. Okay. So here similarly you can find the drift current density due to holes. Same. Instead of N you put it P, and instead of E you just put it H. Isn't it? P is nothing but represents the holes carrier concentration. Okay. All of you noted on this or take a screenshot of this one. Right? So let us go for the continuation. Now here mu h is nothing mobility of charges. Now how can you find the total drift current density? Okay, so total drift is nothing but what you have here. Yeah, drift current density due to electrons and drift current density due to holes. Okay, you make the summation of this one, so you get finally E into E is equal to, sorry, into N into mu E plus P into mu H. So this is the total drift current density in the semiconductor. Okay, so this is very easy. Keep it in mind. They may ask in your problems to solve this one, right? So this is about the drift velocity. Then let us go for the diffusion current, right? So what is the diffusion current? We can have the definition here clearly. Okay, so here the flow of electric current due to motion of charge carriers under concentration gradient. Under external electric field is called drift current, but here under concentration gradient is called diffusion current. Or you can say that the motion of charge carriers from region of higher concentration to lower concentration due to current called diffusion current. So what there is a special word is called region of higher concentration to lower concentration. This is called gradient, concentration gradient we call it as. That is from higher concentration to lower concentration. That is called concentration gradient. So in this way, you can define the diffusion current. So let me have the derivation for that one. Okay. So we can say delta N is the XX electron concentration. So we represent delta N. So according to Fick's law, the rate of diffusion of charge carriers is proportional to concentration gradient. So this is called concentration gradient, that is dou of delta N by dou N, isn't it? So according to Fick's law, we can have that rate of diffusion of charge is proportional to minus dn by dn. So we can have, removing the proportionality constant, okay, where d is called diffusion coefficient of charge carriers. Okay, so here the negative signs indicates that decrease of n with increase of x. X is nothing but you can have the distance, that is from higher concentration to lower concentration. So in the similar way, we can have here the diffusion current density J, that is DIFF is, we can write in this way. We have the direct expression for this one. So we can write Q into minus D into delta N by N. That is called minus Q. Just rearranging the equation. Okay, where Q is nothing but charge of the charge carrier. So diffusion current density due to holes. Okay, similar, just put it E, isn't it? And DH. Okay, so diffusion density due to electrons. You have some other expression for this one. Here, plus E and minus E are the charges of holes and electrons respectively. So what is the total diffusion current density? Just you have to make the total, that is diffusion current due to holes and diffusion current due to electrons. The same expression, you got final expression here. Now here, the expression for total current density due to holes. So this is the diffusion. We call diffusion current density. So what is the total current density for both electrons and holes? You have an expression here. Okay, so you can have this one. This is the current density, total current density due to holes, isn't it? So you can have like this, right? So that is drift plus diffusion. You get total current density due to holes. So this expression you got from the previous, isn't it? Similar way in the holes also you can have this one. Okay, please all of you take a photo shot of this one. It's very important derivation for finding the diffusion current. Okay, so you have the idea about the diffusion current in semiconductors, right? Now, coming to the most important, what is Hall effect? Okay, so what is Hall effect and what is the experimental setup for that one, right? So all of you, please note it the definition. What is Hall effect? Okay. Okay. So how can you define the Hall effect? So here, before going for the Hall effect, so why you migrate to the Hall effect and what is the necessary here? So one of the most important, you can see the first, that is measuring the conductivity will not determine these conductivities due to electrons or holes. You can have the conductors. So this is the first important isn't it? We are getting some electrical conductivity. We don't mind whether it is coming from electrons or holes, right? So here Hall effect has given clear idea about that the conductivity is because of electrons or holes. By his he has demonstrated some experiment regarding that one. Here Hall effect is used to distinguish between the two types of carriers, charge carriers, and their densities. That means carrier densities, and it is used to determine the mobility of charge carriers. Just now in the previous, you find in drift current, that is mobility of charge carriers, that is mu. Okay, here he has given clear idea about that mobility of charge carriers. So once again I repeat, he has given the distinguish between the two types of charger, whether it is due to n type or p type, and also their carrier densities to determine the mobility of charge carriers. So based on their densities, he has calculated the mobility of charge carriers. So that is the need of Hall effect in semiconductors, right? Okay, so let us continue with that. Now you can see a beautiful diagram here. So he has taken a metal or a semiconductor which is in the rectangular in shape, so which carries a current, okay, isn't it? Hall, we can say H represents Hall, isn't it? So here what is explains about this one is, I'll come back for that one. So when a conductor carrying current is placed in a transverse magnetic field, an electric field is produced inside the conductor in a direction perpendicular to both current and magnetic field. This phenomenon is nothing but Hall effect. Once again I repeat, when a conductor carrying current is placed in a transverse magnetic field, there an electric perpendicular to current and magnetic field. This effect is called Hall effect. Okay, and the generator at the top you can see the positive charges are accumulated on here. We can see here the base of the semiconductor. Okay, so this is the where you're carrying current here for the semiconductor, which is placed in a magnetic field. You can see here B is nothing but magnetic field. Okay, now let us find where you can get this Hall voltage. How can you calculate the Hall voltage in this phenomenon? Okay, so let us continue the next. Okay, so now taking n-type semiconductor, isn't it? How this current are produced in that one. So he has given firstly the conclusion of this Hall effect is to have n-type and p-type. He has given distinguish how can you distinguish between n-type and p-type based on the current flow in the semiconductor. Now he has taken simple experiment here. So this is the current direction here. This is the x direction and this is the y direction. Sorry, and this is the y direction and this is the z direction. Okay, you can see the z direction. This is a three-dimensional. Actually I have to write here. So this is along the x direction, and this is the y direction, and this is the z direction. Okay, just why is written here. So here what happens here, from left to right, so direction is also important, from left to right. Okay, so electrons move from right to left. So do you understand about this? I'm saying the current is allowed to pass along the x direction from left to right, but electrons move from right to left. What is that? Why you are saying current and electrons? So you have idea about the conventional current, actual current. So what is actual current? Actual current is due to electrons, but conventional we speak about higher. Tell me. What is the difference between conventional and actual current? So conventional, you speak from positive to negative, but actually actual current is nothing from negative to positive. So that is the difference between conventional current and actual current. So that's why here particularly we speak about that. That means here the current is moving from left to right, but flow of electrons will be right to left. Keep it in mind. Okay. And the magnetic field is in the z direction. That means in this direction. You can see in this z direction. So as a result, Hall voltage is produced in the y direction. This direction you can produce the Hall voltage, right? So here electrons flow from right to left. The magnetic field along the z direction, and Hall voltage will produce in the y direction. Okay, that is in n-type semiconductor. Now, since the direction of the current is from left to right and the electrons move from right to left in x direction as shown in figure, right? So you can see the field you can have, the, isn't it? So this is the first layer what you speak about here, that is layer 1, and here layer 2. You can see the electrons, isn't it? Okay. Now coming to here, in the same continuation here. Okay. So now due to magnetic field, applied, the electrons move towards the downward direction. So what is the direction of electrons? That is right to left along the x direction. So what happens, as electrons are moving from right to left, due to applied magnetic field, they come downwards. You can see the arrows coming downwards. Why? Because the magnetic field, the electron experience some magnetic field. So they always pull to downward direction. Why? Because in z direction you can have the magnetic field. So always this electron pulls towards its, isn't it? That's why see here the arrow showing to the z direction, isn't it? Okay, towards the direction with the velocity v, and cause the negative charge to accumulate at phase 1. This is layer 1. See here, all electrons will accumulate at phase 1 due to magnetic field, that is BeV, isn't it? V is nothing but velocity. Velocity. The electrons move some velocity towards the magnetic field. Okay. So here all electrons will accumulate at layer 1. Why? Because in Z direction there is a magnetic field always pulls down with some velocity to the electrons. Therefore, a potential difference is established between 2 and 1, that is phase 1 and phase 2. So here the material gives rises to electric field EH. So because of the electrons having some velocity and they accumulate at phase 1, so there creates some potential difference between phase 1 and phase 2. Due to this potential difference, there exists some electric field. Okay, that is in the negative y direction. We can say in the negative y direction, right? So how can you write this one here? So here experiences two forces. Here the force due to potential difference, that is minus E into H, and force due to magnetic field, that is BeV, that is in negative y direction. That's why we calling negative y direction. So we put it negative in both the expressions. So this is the potential difference due to force, isn't it? That is created by the potential difference between the two phases, and one is the magnetic field along the z direction. So we have BeV. Okay. So now at equilibrium, equate both the equations. That is EV is equal to, so what you got, that is electric field EH is equal to BV. That is equation 3. This is about the n-type. Okay. So clearly that in n-type semiconductor, the electrons move from right to left, isn't it? Due to of magnetic field, they accumulate at phase 1. So due to accumulation of the electrons on phase 1, there creates a potential difference in negative y direction. Okay. Now, so we can come across that current density. Just now you have done. What is current density in x direction? That is J is equal to minus N into EV, isn't it? So this is expression already we have done in the previous, that is diffusion current, right? So from this, how you find V is equal to Jx by Ne. This is the velocity, isn't it? So you got equation 4, right? So substituting equation 4 in equation 3. What is equation 3 you have? You substitute the value of V here, isn't it? Okay. So what you got here? H is equal to, finally you got RHJB. That is equation 6 you got. So what is RH? It's nothing but Hall coefficient. So what is the value for Hall coefficient? That is minus 1 by NE, isn't it? So instead of minus 1 by NE, you put it RH. That RH is nothing but Hall coefficient. So we can say the negative sign indicates that the field is developed at negative y direction. Okay. So this gives the Hall coefficient in n-type semiconductor, isn't it? In n-type semiconductor. Okay. Now next, similarly in p-type semiconductor, it is reverse. It will be the reverse. So what you observe here is, so I'll take the p-type semiconductor where the current is passed along the x direction from left to right. There is no change in direction of the current, and magnetic field is applied along the y direction. Okay, that is fine. So here the direction of the current is from left to right, and the holes will also move in the same direction. So that is called conventional current. Here, in previous case, what happens? The electrons move in opposite direction to the current. But here, the current and the direction of holes will be in the same direction. That is from left to right. See here, we can see here, the holes are moving from left to right here, isn't it? Right? So you can have the phase 1, phase 2. That's why you have to know the direction in n-type and p-type semiconductor. So let us continue that. So in p-type semiconductor, you can see here, these are the positive phase, you can see at the bottom, and they are negative in the top. But coming to the n-type semiconductor, you can see reverse. So all top will be the positive and bottom will be the negative, right? So that is the difference you can have. So coming to here, what happens? Due to magnetic field, okay, the holes move towards the downward direction with the velocity v and accumulate at phase 1. Same, but the direction changes. Why? Because the hole's direction and the current will be in the same. But in n-type, it will be opposite. So we take here positive, isn't it? Because of negative direction of electrons and the current, we take negative. But here, the hole's direction and the current direction will be in the same direction. So we put it positive here. So we can say here a potential differences exists between phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, that we can write here E into EH. There you have a negative. So here holes is considered to be electron with the same mass but positive charge. Negative sign is not included here. So because of that, a thermal equilibrium equating both the equations, that is EH is equal to B into V. Okay, so we can write electric current, we can have BV. Same, again taking the current density, so NH instead of NE we write NH. That means simply you are omitting the negative sign and putting instead of E put it H. That is the difference. Okay, now you can say this is a whole density. Now substituting equation 10 in equation 9, in this equation, okay, in these equations you got again Hall coefficient, isn't it? In case of p-type semiconductor, just now I said now this is minus 1 by NE is nothing but n-type semiconductor. So instead of you write E, just H, and we can say that the Hall coefficient and the positive sign indicate that Hall coefficient is developed in the positive y direction. So that is the main difference between the n-type and p-type semiconductor. So Hall has demonstrated a beautiful experiment regarding the distinguish how n-type and p-type, and same as well as that is mobility of charge carriers, that is mu. Using density, carrier density, he has calculated the mobility of charge carriers. Okay, now how you can have the Hall coefficient in terms of Hall voltage. So Hall coefficient and Hall voltage, isn't it? So here a simple, so Hall coefficient, you got the expression for n-type and p-type semiconductor. So how can you define the Hall coefficient is Hall field developed per unit current density per unit applied magnetic field is nothing but Hall coefficient. This is the most important. Okay, based on this, we have some derivation here, right? So what is that? Hall field developed per unit current density per unit applied magnetic field. Now let us assume that take a material whose thickness is T and voltage developed is VH. So that is called Hall voltage. You are going to find the Hall voltage in terms of Hall coefficient, that is RH. Okay. Now here V is equal to ET, isn't it? Let's make it equation. So substituting equation 11 in equation 2, that means you are substituting the value of EH, isn't it? You are finding the substituting the value of EH. What is EH here? You can have this one, isn't it? Okay. Now you can have the equation, other equations. Now we know that current density is equal to J into Ix, isn't it? So that considering the area of the material or a specimen or a sample, we can have I by BT, where B is nothing but breadth of the material and T is nothing but thickness of the sample. Okay, making use of these equations. Okay, making these of equations. Now substituting equation 14, equation 3, that means you are going to have the value. You're going to value of this one. Okay, you're going to substitute Jx, isn't it? Right? So what you got? The Hall voltage, finally RH Ix B by B here. Okay. So here finally the Hall coefficient is, it means in terms of V. So what you got? RH is equal to VH B by I into B. So this is the Hall coefficient in terms of Hall voltage. So this most important, you can have clear about this one. Okay. So you may solve in the problems, isn't it? So you can take the photo shot once again. So this is the starting Hall coefficient in terms of Hall voltage. Please all of you take this or copy or whatever way you follow for remembering the notes. Okay. So keep it this, and finally you got the Hall coefficient, right? So there is a small experiment regarding this. You can have few slides are left over. Now let me complete this. Okay. Now experimental determination of Hall effect. So he has given some Desnoy Sedna to find the mobility of charge carriers. Now here he has taken a semiconductor slab of thickness small t, isn't it, and breadth b. Okay, a current is passing through the battery as shown in figure. So you can see this is a rectangular slab, that is semiconductor slab. You can have the three direction, that is along the x direction, y direction, and z direction. So where b is the breadth of the semiconductor slab and T is the thickness, right? Okay. Now here the slab is placed between the pole of electromagnetic, so that the current is coincide with the x-axis. That means current is flowing along the x-axis, and magnetic is flowing along the z-axis. Okay. So where the 2 points coincide here. So, so calculating the Hall voltage is measured by placing two probes at the center of the top and bottom faces of the slab. That means you can have a two probes here. This is the one probe at the top, isn't it? And the bottom also you can have other probe to measure the Hall voltage. Why? Because Hall voltage is produced along the y direction, isn't it? Okay. So and this is connected to a battery, you can see here. So this is a variable battery. You can see the ammeter and you can see the rheostat, isn't it? Okay. Now let us see this one. Please all of you copy this, or else I'll give the PDF file, all the everything, right? Now we know that the conductivity for n-type semiconductor is, we have notion rho is equal to n into e into u into e. This is the mobility of charge carriers. Okay, that is for n-type semiconductor. So this is expression you know very well. So we have taken the generalized expression, that is how to find the conductivity. In the first class, I have given about the conductivity, that is rho is equal to n into E mu into E. So from here, the mobility is given by mu E is equal to rho, that is due to n type by n into, make it equation 1, right? Something is missing here. Okay. So equation 3 means that what you have in the previous one. So directly you have calculated about this one. Okay. So substituting equation 5 in equation 4. So we get mu E, that is you got equation 6. That means the mobility of electrons in n-type semiconductor finally you got here. That is mu is equal to minus rho into RH is nothing but in terms of Hall voltage. See here. Just now you have now Hall coefficient in terms of Hall voltage. So just simply you're substituting here everything, you got the value of here, right? Then next, so if B is the magnetic field applied and VH is the Hall voltage produced, then the Hall coefficient can be calculated from the formula. Okay, this already you have just now. That is Hall coefficient in terms of Hall voltage, isn't it? Right? So you could slide reverse the please all of you. Actually, this should be the first one, and this should be the second one, right? So you got RH value, that is equation 3, and continuous equation 4. So you got the mobility of electron in n-type semiconductor, right? Now here, mobility of electron in n-type semiconductor is you got this value, okay? Similarly, you can write for of E, you are placing H. That's all. Okay, so here finding the Hall voltage, Hall coefficient can be calculated. Thus, the mobility of charge carriers also can be determined. Okay, so what is the aim of this Hall effect is nothing but first to distinguish between n-type and p-type semiconductors, and the second one to calculate the mobility charge carriers, that is for electrons and holes. For electrons, we consider n-type semiconductor. For holes, we consider the p-type semiconductor. Okay, so you got the same, that is mobility charge carriers. Okay, they may ask the question, what are the applications of Hall effect is just to find the mobility charge carriers of electrons and holes. That is a given. Okay, now coming to the applications of Hall effect, you can have the what are the applications, that is conclusion of this one. So first one, the sign indicates whether it is positive or negative. That means you have found out the Hall coefficient. Hall coefficient is, if the Hall coefficient is negative, you can say it is n-type semiconductor. If the Hall coefficient is positive sign, you got the positive sign, you can say it is a p-type semiconductor. Okay, so we can say that the sign of charge carriers can be determined. That what you say, isn't it? And previously we have discussed about that one. So here, this is positive, RH is positive, you can say it is a p-type semiconductor, right? So that is the meaning of this one. So all of you can take the screenshot of this. So next, the carrier concentration can be determined, that is n is equal to 1 by 1.18 by q into RH. That is the second one. And third one, you can find the mobility charge carriers is measured directly, isn't it? So you can have directly, if you know the conductivity, isn't it? You can find the mobility charge carriers, whether it is electron or holes, you can have. Next, the electrical conductivity can be determined, that is mu is equal to n into q. See how many parameters you have a different, you can find from the Hall effect. That is the importance of Hall effect. And the fifth one, it can be used to determine the power flow in n-type semiconductor and n type of semiconductor. So it can be used to determine the power flow in a electromagnetic wave. This is other aspects, you have different applications here. Okay, so these are the some 6 major applications regarding the Hall effect, right? So I think you have any questions you can ask. Okay. Okay, I think no questions. That means you understand my lecture very well. Okay, thank you everyone. So you have concentrated my lecture. That means you have no doubts. That means everything is clear. I mean to say, right? Okay. So this is about the uh, major. We have completed the all electron holes internal what is happening in the semiconductors. Now in the next class, you are going to have the application oriented. So you have some semiconductor material, you have some sample, so you have to want to design to your according to your requirement. That means you are making into junction diode. Okay, that is PN junction and Zener junction, what you have the necessary of that one. That means so far you have studied the internal, what is happening in the semiconductor. Now you have prepared some sample. Now you are going to apply this sample to in different applications. Okay, now you are entering into real world, right? So what is junction diode? So what types of junction diode? How can you make the junction diode? Okay, and what are the major applications? And you can study in that upcoming lectures. Okay, so thank you very much for the this session. So tomorrow you have one more class, and Thursday you have one more class. So we can complete